how we think will reduce the summer melt. But let me take this a little bit at a time here and talk about the first, big elephant in the room, which I think everybody intuitively knows, and that is the COVID-19 situation. This has taken a massive toll on this year's attending class, far more so than even last year. They had both junior and senior years, and it's unimaginable for us to understand what they've gone through. There are certain things that come with COVID-19 or that have been cut off more appropriately for COVID-19. Attending students this year have had fewer family gatherings. And that means the emotional support that they have had in prior years and prior generations is gone. It's missing. This is Uncle Joe slapping you on the back and giving you $50, telling you how proud he is of you going to college, or your cousins or your aunts and uncles talking about what they did and what their college experience was like. The fact that we were isolated this year prevents that from happening. The same is true for friends and high school and current college students. We didn't meet those people. The attending students this year didn't have the opportunity to meet them. And that's a challenge. That means that they did not get the socialization and the sharing that normally occurs. We know that COVID-19 is taking a terrible toll on people, that there's this unrelenting, painful message that is drawing on them. And in fact, isolation, as we have in the top, is almost too soft of a word. In some senses, if you read today's headlines, the word desolation is more in line. So these students are very cut off from what they've been able to see in the past and experience the kind of socialization and sharing that normally happens in their personal lives. But they're also been cut off from the campus. And again, none of this should be surprising to any of us, right, in this industry. If they have visited campus, they were lucky enough to visit, they met just one student tour guide or one admissions counselor. It's been very limited. They haven't had the chance to do visit days, 200, 300, 400 students together, all sharing, all talking, all being exciting. They haven't gotten that inside scoop that happens during those days and during those events. They haven't gone to sporting events. Yes, they've had meetings over Zoom and they've had emails, but there's no spontaneity there. There's no stopping on a hallway or on a tour or in a visit day and just grabbing somebody for 5 minutes and asking questions. Just hasn't happened. And now they're in this very difficult, stressful situation for financially. A significant number of them are under this stress. So these first two charts, probably painting a very bleak picture, not intending to do so, to be fair and to be honest. And what do they tell us? They tell us that the normal times didn't happen for this attending class. They tell us that the socialization and the learning and the excitement and the family support didn't happen for this class. And that's troubling. In fact, it's very troubling for summer melt. And the question is, how troubling is it? And how bad will summer melt be? And there's not really a comparable to this time, of course. There never has been. But these two academic studies give us some insights that we can translate into this experience. And I think probably both of these are fairly well known in the industry. One is from Harvard, you can scan in to get both of these, and one's from the University of Pittsburgh. And both of them studied summer melt. And what are the causes of summer melt? And what are some of the solutions of summer melt? And the thing that's about these, and you should read both of these if you haven't, but the thing that's most interesting, why we're making it a close comparable, is that both of these have outlined that there is almost a direct correlation between stress and lack of socialization, lack of support, and summer melt. The higher the summer melt, the more frequently you see that the students that melted away, if that's the right term, didn't have the support systems, didn't have the socialization. They usually come from either low-income families, first at college, or even academically challenged families. That's the highest melt. But the point emphasized in both of these studies is that it's the stress. It's overwhelming to the students. It causes them to basically say, this is too much. I'm going to back away. I'm not going to go. Now, the good news is, as these two academic white papers have told us, that stress, and as difficult as that is, there are ways to ameliorate or fix MELT. And both of these two studies are outlined. In fact, the study from Harvard was turned into a MELT handbook. I'm sure many of you have seen it. And the top line results coming out of that on the left-hand side is that to achieve a reduction in MELT, they are strongly suggesting personal interaction with intending students. And that's either a peer mentor reaching out to the students or a counselor during the summer to encourage them, find out what's going on, give them support. In fact, they also have, for two-year colleges here, a plus 5 percentage point improvement for, I'm just gonna have to move this a little bit over here, sorry for this, plus 5 percentage point improvements in their MELT for two-year colleges from this personal outreach. So this is on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, this was another study that was done by Georgia State University and Admit Hub. They have an artificial intelligence RoboChat service. And this RoboChat service offered assistance for any student that had specific questions and that had any particular deadlines due. They integrated into CRM systems. And both of them were successful. Both of them reduced summer MELT for these high stress situations. I do want to point out, though, that there's a significant difference between the results on the right and the results on the left. Remember, the difference here on the left is that this is personal. This is somebody reaching out and connecting to the student and saying, I'm here to help you. And on the right was an artificial intelligence version of that, where an artificial RoboChat would reach out. And both of them have significant values here. And so these first few charts that I'm sort of just outlining is a little bit of the landscape. We're in a very high stress time. We know from these two studies that high stress situations, students under high stress, have significantly higher MELT rates. And yet here we are in 2021 with probably the highest stress situation for today's intending students, today's matriculating students that's ever existed. And so the question and the point we're asked in our title here is this going to be the worst year ever for summer MELT? And if it is, what are some of the implications here? And so our team sort of took that knowledge and we sort of said to ourselves, okay, could we find a way to use what these two academic studies have told us, that texting and personal help and personal support can improve summer MELT? Can we find a way to then allow peers, orientation counselors, and tour guides to text intending students? To our knowledge, this isn't really done out there very efficiently, but we put it out here. And so this was our challenge. We started about 6 months ago, struggling with this and working through this, and we worked with several of our schools that use HelloCampus Live. We've come up with a solution that I think is interesting, but first of all, it's centered on texting. Why? First, the two academic studies use texting. That was an easy one. And texting is personal, but it's a low key. And most important for this time and this age, it keeps social distancing. So that's COVID safe. A couple other points, obviously it's asynchronous. The tour guides, the orientation counselors can do it from anywhere to students anywhere. Students anywhere can text in at any time. So texting made the most sense. And so we took this idea of connecting peers and peer tour guides, orientation counselors to intending students over texting, and we sort of just validated with students and with some of the tour guides we work with, what do you think of this concept? And, I at a very high level, I think everybody on this call would understand that texting is the preferred way that students, and particularly 18 to 24-year-olds, operate. This is what's natural for them. In fact, we have a couple of interesting stats, none of which should probably be too surprising to you, but they do texting 3 times more than they do calling or email. They do 103 texts a day. They're on their phones 10 hours a day, and 73% of them use that phone primarily for texting and messaging. So there's a natural interest and a natural inclination for this. And in fact, if you study it a little further, the studies that are out there suggest that they're doing 94.6 minutes of texting per day. It is the way. I've talked to a lot of other people, and there are my generation's texting patterns do not follow this. But this is what the industry sort of suggests. Okay, so the last thing I do want to point out, there was a third study on texting, academic white paper that comes out of UC Berkeley, and Berkeley actually studied the impact of texting on people who were living in stressful times. And they have this wonderful quote here where somebody says, look, when I was having a difficult situation, I got a text message. I felt so much better. I felt cared for and supported, and my mood improved. If there's anything that sort of struck me in all the research that we did, it's that. This is a human being who's saying, I'm overwhelmed, and somebody's reaching out to text me and offering me support and friendship and a connection. And that positive strength, that positive outcome is what we're trying to offset in those earlier charts. And so how do we do that? How do we get this done with peers? And this is how we've structured a solution. And I'll go through this in a few slides and give you a sense of this, and then see where we want to go with some Q&A. So I start first with this postcard. Now you can invite intending students however you'd like to join whatever texting program you might want to run. This is one idea, which is a postcard, but you can use email or Instagram. And you can see over on the left, the front of the card has a very simple message. We're here for you. We want to reach out. We want to connect. We want to be human with you. And we want you to meet our current students. They want to meet you. And it's as easy as texting in a phrase, in this case, class of 2025, and a number. And on the back side, we give a little detail about what our summer guide is, but the key piece of this is simply the invitation, class of 2025, to text in to a certain number. That's your number. This is 100% voluntary. This would be the intending student getting a message, again, email, Instagram, postcard, however you want to do it, and they text this in. They want to connect with current students, those current students being your tour guides and orientation counselors. And when they do, they text in that phrase, they respond. And by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a number and you're going to be able to try this out live. It's live and operational. I've got my tech team sort of crossing their fingers. Sophia mentioned to me that this is one of the largest webinars she's ever done. And we scaled up our servers to try and handle the volume that might happen all within a very short period of time. But we'll let you do this. But I'm going to step you through it to show you. So we start with class of 2025. We welcome them. They ask their name. Student enters Anna. Welcome, Anna. Can you tell us your major? And Anna responds with teaching. Now, that's a vernacular. It might be education, math, whatever. But we now know who Anna is. We now know she's interested in talking to current students. And this centerpiece is sort of informational for us. Probably many of you are reading it. We're asking Anna to just look at these 8 questions. And these 8 questions came primarily from our schools that we work with, and one of the great schools innovators that we worked with as well. I'll leave that off. But these are the questions that they want to sort of center Anna. What are the most important things for Anna over the summer? What is she concerned about? Pick 3 of these 8. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But before I do, I want to explain that we've already gotten in the system, back behind all of these screens, the orientation and tour guides to onboard and register. And those orientation guides are asked these same 8 questions. And we ask them to tell us how confident they are in answering questions in each category. And so it's a scale of 1 to 5. If they're very confident, that's a 5. If they're not confident at all or they don't want to answer questions, it's a 1. And so this helps us match Anna to tour guides based on the things Anna's interested in. And you can see here that Anna indicates that she's interested in 3, 7, and 5. Dealing with all the forms and transcripts in the student portal, number 3. Number 5, what kind of academic support is offered? Keep that one in mind. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. And number 7, what's it like to live on campus? What will day-to-day life be like? Why are these questions here again? Because remember, they haven't had the chance to ask all these questions. They don't know. They're concerned, they're frustrated, they're isolated. So we're giving these as sort of a way for our guys and the intending student to connect. After we get Anna's information, we ask her to agree to our terms and our privacy, and she gives a yes. I want to point out the privacy. It's the 3rd paragraph here. This is important because in our program, we're actually asking Anna to give us her permission to capture all of her texts, the guides do the same, and to share those with admissions. So you will actually see, or could see if you're interested, every text that goes back and forth. And she has to agree to that as part of our program. She says yes, and we indicate to her, fabulous, you're in. We're going to connect you to some summer guides, and that is how we get to the next step. Now, the next step is we take that information, that profile, and we start to match guides based on what those numbers were. So here we have a case of Tony who matched with Anna. And Tony is the guide, and we match them on our back end. We can work with you on how to match them. If you already have assigned orientation guides to individuals, give us that list and we'll match that orientation guide ahead of time. But we do match up to 4 tour guides and orientation counselors to each intending student. You can see here we invite Tony to connect with Anna, give a little bit of information that we have, and Tony says, yes, I'm interested, I want to connect to Anna, and we say, great. Next, our system, will introduce you to Anna using an intro text. Now, our system is about to step out, and we're about to make these connections to Anna and Tony and allow them to text back and forth. And this is an important part of what the program is. In fact, it's probably the most important part. If I go back to that academic study and I talk to you about the learnings and the socialization that didn't happen, a lot of that, you're going to see that in a few slides, is about informing the intending student of what to expect. That's great topics. But what we're really reaching for here is the personal connection. I think I've probably over the year spoken to 500 or 600 admissions executives and admissions counselors. And there is one theme that consistently shows in almost every school, which is our school cares about our students and our school welcomes them and supports them. And how do you do that? You do that with texting. And before I even show you this, I just want to relay a quick story as a dad, not as an admissions professional or industry professional. As a dad, I want to tell you about my daughter. She's a freshman this year at Providence College in Providence, Rhode Island. And you know, she was a senior last year during COVID. She's been a freshman during COVID all year. You know, they've had some lockdowns. They've been restricted to eating. They've had to wear masks. They've been podded. There's a pod of 6 people they can connect with, and pretty much that's it. It's been tough. And as a father, you watch this and you think, you know, you're missing out on so much. And, you know, she's a good trooper and she's always been very positive and always says how grateful she is for her roommates and the people she did meet in her pod. But I didn't realize how much she was missing until a couple of weeks ago. She joined what's called the Friar Club at Providence College. It's actually their tour guide program. And she applied for it and she was accepted. And the day she was accepted, she called us up so happy, like gleeful, joyful, walking on cloud 9 and saying she got in. I'm like, well, great, that's terrific. And she goes, no, you don't understand. Every tour guide at Providence College has been texting me, telling me how excited they are for me to come in and be a tour guide and be part of them and welcome them. And of course, because I've been working on this, really they're texting you. Tell me what they're texting. And would you share with me in confidence your text? And she said, sure. So she took a few screenshots of some of these texts. And I won't read them because I don't want to break the confidence, but I'll relate to you what I saw. And it was heartbreaking for me as a father to watch this. The reception she got from the prior Friar Club members was so overwhelmingly warm and welcoming and joyful that I could see why she was so excited. Every one of them understood that they haven't met most of the freshmen. They haven't met her. They all said that they can't wait to meet her. They can't wait to have coffee with her. One of them even wrote the phrase that said, if you need anything, and I mean anything in the world, find me on campus and I will get it for you. And there were genuine texting message of how welcoming they wanted to be to her. Now, this is a club. It's not the same as admissions. We're not trying to make an analogy of joining a club like that is equal to coming into a junior college or state school. But it is true that all of these intending students are starving for that kind of connection. And you've got them over the summer, and they're going to be further out from their students and their high school and their classmates, and they're still going to be struggling with COVID-19. And texting is at least a way to personally get this. So you see this text in here. Tony, you probably have already read it, makes his introduction. And, Anna responds, feeling a little overwhelmed. They have a natural banter, a back and forth texting. We're out of the way here. Our job was done on the left. We connected Anna and we connected Tony, and we get them to chat and to talk and welcome each other. Now, that's the first introduction. Our job, we know that all of these threads end in a very natural way. I mean, some texting threads end after 5 minutes. Some go on for an hour. Some go a day or two. But they all end. They have a natural ending. And the program is not set up for just one introduction. There are multiple guides. And the program is set up to have multiple conversations throughout the summer. So throughout the summer, we are actually texting ideas and prompts to the guides. We know that Anna and Tony connected. In fact, we have this first text message, usually goes out within a day or two, to tell Tony, listen, you matched to Anna. If you guys remember back to those questions, the 8 questions, and I told you, remember number 5, it's about academic support. Now we're telling Tony, you matched to Anna because of her interest in academic support. Now, Tony has already told us when he registered that he's a highly confident tour guide or orientation counselor to talk about academic support. So we've matched them because this is an issue Anna wants to talk about and Tony's an expert on. We do give Tony a helpline, but we say, now that you know this, would you like to talk to Anna and give her some ideas about academic support? And Tony, of course, reaches out after he thinks about it and says, Anna, how are you doing again? And I know you were interested in academic support. So, I've used it, trigonometry and chemistry, and, it's tough, but everybody's there to help. Are you nervous about a subject, or how can I help you do this? This should sound familiar. This is the kind of stuff that happens normally when you're not in COVID, when you get to meet other college students or other high school students, or you get to talk to your guidance counselors more, you get to talk to your professors more. That didn't happen. So we're trying to replicate this over the summer to give the greatest opportunity to reduce summer melt that we can. Now, we do that all summer. We send these prompts out to the guides before due dates, like healthcare forms or transcripts are due or loan information is due. And we do it for fun things like, hey, if your parents are going to drop you off, here's my favorite restaurants that I've eaten at with my parents. Or for any reason, we work with you on these prompts. This is one that tied to the healthcare form. We obviously recognize that it's an important due date. We also recognize that it's privacy information, so Tony won't know it, but he still uses the opportunity potentially to talk to Anna and inform Anna, hey, have you gotten it in? If not, I can help you. Or how's everything else going? Because this is our intention all through the summer to try and encourage this and build this. Now, each of these prompts comes with a help page. because Tony's a student tour guide or a orientation counselor. They might be working during the summer. They might be on vacation somewhere. And so what we do is we give him ideas. We give him a page that's for your school about your clubs in this case. Maybe it's time to reach out and tell Anna about the clubs she can join. And so Tony reviews that page and texts Anna the next day or the next hour and says, let me tell you all about these awesome clubs that we have. So this is a really important part of what we do with this program, is to build that socialization, build that knowledge, build that connection, build that warmth throughout the entire summer. And so you can see here that when we built this, and we started about 6 months ago, we started to look at what does this need to do for intending students? And of course, it has to be voluntary, and it has to get their permission to share their text and profile and be as relevant as possible and as personal as possible. And so that's how we look at this. And then when you look at the orientation and tour guides, we recognize it has to fit their summer plans. Many of them won't be on campus. They may be home. They may be vacationing. They may be taking summer classes somewhere. We know they need a help desk. I'll talk about that in just a minute. We know that they're going to want the texting ideas I just shared with you. And then from your side, from the administration side, you're going to want to ensure that there's nothing creepy or stalking going on, that you've hidden the real numbers of the guides and students using this program. So we did that. And again, I'm grateful to all of our schools that have worked with us for the last 6 months on how to design this program. These are all inputs that they provided. And this last one, of course, was the flagging of inappropriate texting for your review. You're not going to have the time to read all of them, but we have certain flags that we'll be able to pull off automatically reports to send you to take a look at. And you can get a copy of every text that's sent. So this is all built over the last 6 months for our schools. I mentioned the help desk. Your guys are going to be out there. They're going to be doing this as a helpful tool for your intending students. And so you've got to offer them the right amount of help. I mentioned earlier the text prompts and the ideas throughout the summer. We also have a live help desk. You can see here that Tony is getting a message from Anna, and Anna's asking about, how do I file for a student loan? What do I tell her? Now, if Tony was on campus, he might go into admissions or into financial aid and get some information. But he's out, at home, and he doesn't know what to do. He can text that question to us. And our team, our staffed help desk from 8 to 9 p.m., and that covers the West Coast until 9 p.m. as well, so East Coast up to midnight. We're going to tell them, look, here's a link of information from the school's admission website on filing for school loans. She has the financial aid office phone number, and please, again, do not discuss financial aid. That's the help desk. Issues that go beyond this first level help desk, we then transfer to the school itself and to admissions or financial aid or orientation counseling. Second thing, and probably the most important here, and I'm sure some of you are already thinking, oh, this is great, but what if my tour guides or orientation counselors are on vacation and, in the Grand Canyon, they can't be reached, and they get this important question from a tour guide or from an intending student? I'm sorry. And you're concerned, this is going to send a bad signal if they don't answer that in a timely manner. And texting is timely. You have to respond quickly. And so that's what this is. We've actually gathered that this is the most risky challenge that most of our schools have asked us about. They're concerned that the intending student will feel ignored, that maybe it'll cause anxiety or insecurity. Maybe they don't want to fit in, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. So we resolved that issue. We actually have that staffed human help desk that will answer any calls. We prompt twice to the tour guide or orientation counselor they were asking the question to, in case they missed it the first time. And then if they don't answer within 90 minutes, we'll step in with an answer. And so this is a really important piece that most of our schools, in fact, this is the most important piece. Another thing that we've gotten is, okay, what about paying our guides, call them summer guides? How do we do it? If so, should we? How much? And our take is, yes, you should pay them. These guys are doing an important job. They're engaging or intending students. They're doing a very valuable service for those students. They're offering some of their time up during the summer to do that, and so you should do that. We've created an optional turnkey payment system, and we can go into that if you're interested. It uses Venmo to actually pay those tour guides wherever they are. But a couple of points for you to consider. This is not an employee role. When a tour guide is on campus, does an hour tour, they're actually an employee. You're directing them. These are actually contractor roles. They're actually out wherever they are. We give them the freedom to say yes or no to a tour, to take on a text message with an attending student. And they do these text messages in 2-minute bites of time. And so that's a really different role than employee, and it's something that we can talk to you further about. But our model is to pay these guides, and you can think of this almost like an Uber driver. Uber drivers get paid by miles driven and time. We pay guides based on how many characters they send, how many texting they do. So in fact, for every 4,000 characters that they text, which is about a page of text, a full page typewritten document, we give them a $10 payment. And again, we offer this as a turnkey payment if you're interested, but for sure, it's an option. There are several schools that we're talking to right now that are not interested in doing that. They have volunteer tour guides. And there are other schools that have interesting ways that they've handled this kind of payment issue for things like Instagram and Facebook posts, where they might pay an orientation counselor an extra couple of hours worth of work, knowing that they'll do it, but they don't have to track, and everybody agrees that that's okay. So this is optional, but it's something, if you wanted to do it, we think it's very cost effective for you to do. So here's the numbers, just to see if this squares with your budgets and your concerns about orientation and summer melt. And you start on the left with the number of intending students you have. And this would be your goal, to reach as many of those and invite them into the program. And when they voluntarily come in and we match them to a student tour guide, and again, orientation counselor or a walking tour guide, that's a matched pair. Those people together send text. We give you some estimate of kind of volume that we have. And I can break all of these out. I didn't, because it gets complicated and I didn't want to waste your time here. But this fourth column tells you at a very high level what this will essentially cost you based on the number of intending students you have. And this is an important conversation for us to have. We know how difficult budgets are this year. We know how tight everything is. And we also know, quite frankly, that one of the most important things here is that the ROI or payoff for this kind of program is going to be tied exactly to how much your fall enrollment improves or weakens. So if you remember what we said earlier on, summer melt right now is potentially the highest it's ever been. And if that's true, and you guys have worked hard to recruit the classes you've recruited, an investment like this is going to pay off, to give you some sense of what a return on that. And again, just out of, for simplicity's sake, because we referenced the academic white papers, this is the kind of return on investment that you're looking at. And a lot of this comes from, of course, the technology we built. I'm grateful for that. But a lot of this kind of result, especially what you see on the left-hand side, comes from your tour guides, your orientation counselors, and their commitment, like my daughter's Abby's Friar Club, of reaching out and wanting to support and wanting to encourage and wanting to welcome all of those students onto campus. I'm going to do one more thing, because I know I've gotten a few of these questions. We did some dry runs. Okay, if we're interested, what do we do? Timing is super tight. Summer melt starts in May. For most of us, it's May 8th, graduation. Some of the schools are on a later start date. That means we've got to sign contracts by April 15th. We're essentially 3 weeks from that. That's really, really tight. I get that, and it is what it is. Once that contract is signed, we ask you to give us your contact information for the orientation tour guides you want to participate in the program. We recruit and onboard those guys, so they're all set up when the tour, when the intending students are invited. Generally, we're suggesting after May 8th. That's usually graduation May 8th, so we're not touching anything during finals. We can do an optional postcard, as you saw earlier, to your intending students, or you can email them and send out social media messages to invite them. But they opt in voluntarily after May 8th, and then all summer long, once they start connected to guides, we prompt those conversations and encourage those all summer long. And we're offering the help desk and the support for the guides to do that. And we meet with you every 2 weeks to review where things are, what prompts we should send out, what ideas you'd like to send out, what your deadlines are, etc.